Hello, thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Gavin Spores. I am a NICO Outreach Officer based at Norwich University of the Arts, where I also study there on film courses, both undergraduate and postgraduate. And today I'm joined by three of our lovely student ambassadors currently studying and working at Norwich University of the Arts. And I'll let them introduce themselves. If you want to start with Kira.
I'm Kira and I'm year 2 on the Games Art and Design course.
Jan, if you want to go next.
Okay.
Yep. Hello, I am Jan. I am also at Games Art and Development. I'm year 2 and I'm also actually an ambassador.
And hello, I'm Angel. I'm a year 2 film and moving image production student at NUA.
Fantastic, thank you all. So today we're just going to have a bit of a open discussion about a few questions relating to being an LGBTQ plus individual studying in higher education. So the first question I'm going to start off with is, can you talk about the clubs and societies that are particularly welcoming for LGBTQ plus students at Norwich University of the Arts? Don't be shy. Who wants to go first?
Okay, I can go. So I am actually a member of the NUASU Pride Society, and obviously that would be the most aligned with the description. And as a member, I can say that we are a very friendly community, welcoming people of all identities from the LGBTQ plus spectrum. We provide a forum for talking about matters from fun and serious, and also we hold periodically awareness sessions this year, having done such as sexual health, LGBT History Month, and even dating advice. We had that session at some point. Together with the student union, we push for continuous and positive change at the university, having campaigned for things such as queer and trans awareness, and aiming to create more gender-neutral toilets at our campus and other actions. And also, obviously, we are a student society, so we have parties from time to time. Before lockdown, we had parties and group dinners. And now in the current remote environment, we have gaming and chatting nights from time to time. And yeah, I can say that it's a very nice and welcome society. If you feel like this is something you vibe with, I think you should check it out. One thing to note, though, is that what any society does depends on what kind of students are the members and leaders in a given year. And we were lucky enough to have such ambitious people in the 2 years. And while your experience might be different a few years from now, we hope that we're going to continue to uphold this quality in the next years.
And does anybody else have any experiences of particularly welcoming societies like the Pride Society there?
Yeah, I would say that I'm not really someone that likes to go to like society and stuff. I'm not like a regular attendee, but I've been to quite a few events of the BAME Society, and they like to have their specific talks with like queer people of colour, and they had their Creatives of Colour lecture series. They just have a lot of time to, address diversity, and they give a platform to queer people of colour, and I think it's interesting to see their perspectives on things, just to be around people that it doesn't necessarily have to be the focus of being queer, but it is a focus of like just all wanting to learn, really.
And does anybody have any experiences outside of the BAME and the Pride Society? Because I know there's obviously at universities you have all sorts of different places. There could be like sports societies, more creative arts, anyway, I'm sure there's loads of creative societies. Are those places where LGBTQ plus individuals tend to go as well? Or does nobody really have had that kind of experience?
I would just say that I've never personally attended any kind of society, but as a bisexual woman, I'd always just felt really welcomed into the university, and especially in my first year living in All Saints Green in student halls, I just met very like-minded people who were also bisexual or gay or straight, and no matter what the people were that I lived with, I was lucky enough to live with people who were very accepting. And the university is just, obviously, as they have to be, they are very accepting. But without outside of all of the clubs, I'd always felt open and confident to just be who I am.
Good, lovely. So how many on-campus activities and campaigns for Pride and LGBT History Month are there? And do you feel supported by these activities, if there are any?
So personally, I can't give any experiences on the matter, as sadly my time at university largely coincided with national lockdown. But I do know, however, that unfortunately the university hasn't done as much as they could have over the past years. We did have stalls and during the Pride, during Norwich Pride, and we took part in marches, but we sadly didn't have any promotion for the LGBT History Month. However, I know that over the past year, the Pride Society and the student union have been working together to improve that. And we aim to, once the situation permits, of course, host more and better on-campus activities for both of these events in the next years.
I mean, I came to the university slightly before I did year zero, so I had some experience of some of the events. I remember that the SU president at one point was part of Norwich Pride, leading part of the march with NUA students. But I would say, I wouldn't say there's that many events that have been planned or on-campus activities towards the LGBT community. But I would say that I think maybe the focus isn't necessarily on these events, and it's more on just within the university finding more of an LGBT focus. I think that's what I would want from the university, is that like on courses or within disciplines they address LGBT history or even Pride Month more. I think it would be good to just see that we are everywhere, really.
Great, thank you for sharing. And still focusing on NUA slightly, and obviously your experiences there. Do you feel there's any safe and or comfortable spaces within the university, or if there's particular safeguarding policies that are in place for queer students?
I'll start off with saying that student support is a really good place to receive support for any kind of thing that you're going through, any issues. Just having somebody there to talk to. They're obviously very supportive. They make you feel very included and very heard. And they'll always follow up with emails. Today I got an email from Siobhan just checking in to see how I was, which is just really nice to feel like they've not just kind of forgotten you after you've talked about something, sort of thing. And especially because NUA is a specialist university, it's a little bit smaller than bigger universities. So even my lecturers, if I've ever had any kind of issue, they'll always be very supportive, and they'll be like a teacher. They're a mentor. They're not just your teacher. They really do mentor you through your academic work, but also working on yourself and just making sure that you're in the right place to be able to do all of the work that's expected of you.
Yeah, I would agree, and I would add on that I think that I've had some various issues, maybe with a student saying something that I didn't necessarily think was like appropriate or it made me uncomfortable. And I think that the tutors and the staff are really good with that sort of thing. There's certain ones that you can go to that you can really talk about your issues with. If you think that you're not okay with something, then they will listen to you and they'll take it seriously. And even if you want to go to a point where you want to complain about something specific about your course, you can go to the SU president, and she's been really helpful at times where I felt that there was something wrong, or I thought that something could be improved. She really does work to change things. I think there's also change from the students as well. I know someone personally who is working to achieve diversity training for all of the staff so that they can like not be led into these situations where they might say something potentially wrong.
Yeah, and I can confirm that all this is built in a backbone of the university conduct, that the university wants to be actually very supportive of all queer individuals and promotes and safeguards equality. And there are a lot of safeguarding measures and procedures in order to protect us, students of queer and students and all the other minorities. Personally, I do feel safe and protected by them. And even though I did not have to use them myself, when there were any occasional acts of homophobia, transphobia, or other hate acts, I saw them dealt with quickly. And yeah, that showed me that they are effective and the university takes care of us. But yeah, obviously the people who do those kind of hateful things, they are a minority. And personally, I can say that I believe that the vast majority of the student body is extremely accepting and open-minded, and all the friends I have made here have been extremely supportive. So yeah, I do feel really safe here, and I feel like I'm free to be whoever I am, and that's completely okay.
Good. And how has going to university help you explore and nurture your own personal identity?
I would say that it's definitely made me feel like more free and like independent. I guess being an adult, I can make my own decisions now, and I feel I can be more open about my identity, you know, as a non-binary person, exploring my own gender identity, and I guess just feeling like I'm surrounded by people who are more like-minded. Like I've got quite a lot of friends who feel the same or are also queer in some way, and I feel like I am more able to just be independent and think independently from like just from when before, like in school. I guess in school you have sort of like the rules around you, but now you're your own person. You can just do what you want and be more open, I guess.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Kara said. And yeah, with the university being so supportive and all my friends being so open-minded and accepting of who I am, I never had to hide anything about myself here. Yeah, and that allowed me to grow much more confident in myself and taught me how to be much less embarrassed when talking openly about my own sexuality. And this is extremely important thing for me because I am an international student and I come from a country which is sadly extremely homophobic and conservative. And yeah, there I wasn't really able to talk about myself much openly in the public. So coming here has been an extremely liberating experience. And it taught me how to gain more confidence and feel pride in who I am.
Yeah, definitely. I think that coming to university definitely made it feel like I was taking a step up from being a girl to a woman, even though it sounds quite cheesy. It definitely felt like you were kind of pushed in at the deep end because you were just, you know, in this new city. I've known it anyway because I live quite close to Norwich, but you really do feel, for the first day at least, you might feel like you're on your own, but once you just meet the people who are around you and go to your courses and make friends on your course, you really don't feel alone. And yeah, I suppose it's a community really, I suppose, because you've got all of the lectures and you've got student support and all of your friends who I've never known anything but support from them, which has been very, very nice, of course.
Good, great. Next question is really about representation within your own fields, and the answer is probably going to be quite similar because everybody here is practicing creative arts. So, why do you think it's important for greater LGBTQ plus representation within the industry that you're studying and developing your practice in?
I believe that, yeah, representation is extremely important, and not I study games, and I don't think it just applies to games. I think it applies to all the medias, because representation has been lacking recently. And I believe why it's important. I believe there's two main reasons. Firstly, it normalizes our community, so it shows the outside side of them that we just as human as everyone else, and that how and why should we be treated with respect. And secondly, it provides our own community with role models, and which are extremely important to both those at the start of the journey to self-discovery and acceptance, and at the end of it, because it allows people to see themselves in others and to feel important and recognized in the world. And I think that currently we are lucky enough to be at a turning point where more and more creative industries, including games and also animation and many other media, where those industries become more open to LGBT creators and stories. So I believe that if you personally have a dream to become a creative and tell stories of representation, I think you should go for it, definitely, because now is the opportunity to do so. Personally, my personal goal is to one day create games which are going to speak of gay men respectfully and constructively. And I sincerely hope that anyone who feels the same drive to make a change or positive change follow that mission. Yeah, and that's because I believe that together, through creative media, we are able to change how the society sees us at large.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Jan said about role models. I think being in the film industry and growing up, obviously watching films just kind of constantly, that was a big part of knowing what my identity was and knowing that I was bisexual from quite a young age, really, was because I'd see these films and there'd be a bisexual woman in a film and I'd see the way that they'd act, and it would kind of be like they would kind of be teaching you in a way, because it would be, if you were seeing at such a young age, if you were seeing a bisexual woman in a film being treated as they should and going through the same things and the thoughts and everything that I was experiencing, it made you kind of take that as an example of what it would be okay for you to be like that. And I definitely think that there's some films out there where the representation of the LGBTQ plus community is really positive. Unfortunately, there's some films that don't capture that quite as well. And that's something that is gradually going to change. Of course, in the film industry, there's been a lot of talk about sexual assault, especially with, big cases like Harvey Weinstein. And unfortunately, a lot of that will be with LGBTQ plus community, as it's a kind of different aspect. And obviously, we know something needs to change, especially being a woman in a course with mostly men. I don't feel as though I need to kind of push myself to be better than them, because I'm just being the student that I need to be. I don't want to kind of make it a gender war and try and, prove that I'm better than them. I'm just trying to be here and work as hard as I can so that I can prove that we're just as good as them, kind of thing. I know it's a bit of a tangent, but something with film, I think, is quite an important thing.
Yeah, and I would say for like just the creative industries as a whole, I feel like it goes further than representation. It sort of goes into the idea of just we actually do need more diversity. We need more diversity in sense of how people think, how people approach things. And I think not just with LGBT representation, but with all walks of life, whether it be different races, different nationalities, I think we need stories that are told in different ways. We need just a way to change the mainstream, because at the moment I feel in all creative aspects things can heavily cater in one way. Like in games, it caters towards definitely a white male audience, but when you have more representation, when you have greater diversity, then you get to see things that you wouldn't normally see and perhaps be challenged by the things that you are seeing within the creative industry. And then equally, it can make more people want to join and more people be inspired by it.
Gonna add in another question leading off from that. Because you're all, doing practical work within your different disciplines, do you all consciously incorporate topics of sexuality and queerness into your work, or do you find it's something that unconsciously appears in your work, or do you find that it doesn't appear in your work at all?
I actually do, and I'm actually planning to make greater gaming about women and write an final essay about gayness for my third year. And yeah, I think it's important to talk about those things. And yes, there is the fear that like if you put that later on your CV that this is my final dissociation, and I was talking about queerness, and yes, you might be afraid that your future employers might look at it like, oh, they're queer, okay, I'm not going to hire them. Yeah, that is a valid response, but at the same time, if they do that, you really like them to hire you. So yeah, I think it's high time that more people become more confident in talking about themselves, and I think it's important. And because if we don't do that, there isn't going to be any forward movement.
Yeah, I guess for me, I think there's some conscious and some unconscious, like adding into things. I guess in some ways it does impact my work. I mean, I do primarily 3D modeling within games, so I guess I'm making a lot of objects rather than perhaps people or telling certain stories. But I suppose what I want to do with these objects and how I want to place them and what kind of story I want to tell with them would probably come through a queer lens in a way. And there are ways that I actively do address LGBT issues. Like also my dissertation will be focusing on just how LGBT representation and I guess LGBT people, the way that they approach games can be fundamentally different and revolutionary to the games as a whole.
Yeah, I think it's interesting actually, because when you asked that question, I kind of sat here and thought, no, I don't think I've written about anything at all like that. But then as I kind of came around to it, I was thinking that I wrote my first year essay about the film Call Me By Your Name, which I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with. I absolutely adore that film. And I studied that in terms of the links to Greek mythology with homosexuality, and I just thinking that I actually found it really interesting that it's something that I talked about. And for my year 2 essay, I've spoken about sexuality in the way that in horror films or in every kind of film, the way that evil is kind of interpreted as a sexual thing. And then there's also the kind of idea of the final girl in horror films where the whore is the one that gets killed first, and the one that's innocent is the one that gets killed last. And obviously this can tie into LGBTQ plus community or not, but that's something that I've written about with links to LGBTQ plus as well. So yeah, it's quite interesting that you kind of do realize that it obviously is something important to me, but not subconsciously. It's very unconscious.
Interesting, thank you all. And as a final question, which I suppose is and isn't directly tied to being an LGBTQ plus individual, but do you have one top tip about taking care of your mental health?
I think one of the most important things is to be mindful of your body. We're students, and we just tend to just get overwhelmed with a mountain of work. And I myself and many of my own friends have just tended to just drop into a binge of working and completely forget about themselves. And yeah, that can be extremely exhausting, and it impacts your work in a major way. So I think it's really important that you listen to your body know what you need to rest and eat, and it's right to take a break, to steam off. You shouldn't be ashamed of it. Everyone needs it from time to time. And yeah, if you remember to take about your physical health first and foremost, I believe that then it's going to be much more easy for you to work, and your work quality will greatly improve.
I guess my top tip would probably be probably don't compare yourself to other people, and don't compare like your situation or how much work you're doing or something like that to other people, because there's a reason why you haven't done that, or maybe you're not even interested in that. I think a lot of people can get this sort of like fear of missing out in a way that like, am I supposed to be doing that? Should I be at this stage with my work? Or especially with arts, we're always comparing, oh, does this look as good as somebody else's work? And I think it's really a way for you to just spiral and think, oh, I'm not doing enough, when really I think most people, you probably are doing enough. You probably always are doing enough. If you can't do something, then there's a reason for it. Maybe you're tired, or maybe you're not supposed to be doing that yet. I think definitely comparing is never great. It just makes you feel worse.
Sorry, Gavin, I can't give just one. I've got too many. But I would definitely agree with Jan with physical health. I think just since I've been going to the gym, it's just improved my mental health so much. Everything I'm saying just sounds cheesy, but it really has helped me a lot. And I don't think you should ever underestimate just a breath of fresh air. Just getting out in the sunlight and just being in touch with nature just feels very just refreshing. And you can always take a moment to step outside and just get some fresh air. And also kind of following on from what Kira was saying, just that don't kind of think about other people too much, really. I know if you're a caring person, you're gonna possibly put people in front of you. I know I do. I put people before myself, but I know that I should be the number one thing to myself, because I matter the most. At the end of the day, I've got myself, and that's it, really. You have people around you, but you need to just value yourself and your body and your mind, and I suppose nurture yourself like you would a child. Just really just look after yourself as though you were looking after yourself if you were 5 years old or something, as though you were kind of talking to that person. But yeah, everything that everyone else has said.
Brilliant. Thank you all so much for being open and sharing your experiences. And for those watching, thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully you find some, if not all, of this roundtable discussion insightful and helpful. Once again, Kira, Jan, Angel, thank you so much for joining today.
Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
And thank you everybody for watching. Take care.